Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Bella Fix. If you are new, and if you're not, what's up? I am a New York City wife and mom, Latina content creator. And today I wanted to discuss how I am as a mother in relation to my first child when I was 18 versus my last child that I had at the age of 30. Huge difference mentally, emotionally, spiritually, geographically. I mean, all of the things. But before we get into that, I want to let you guys know to please do not forget to follow me on TikTok and also follow me on Instagram. And if you have any inquiries, please do not hesitate to reach out to me in the messages. Please leave a comment below or send me an email at thebellafix@gmail.com. And one last thing, we have officially reached 100 subscribers. I started this page 4 months ago and it has been a slow start, but it's definitely been a lot of trials and tribulations that I am going through. And I've been learning so much. And one of the things that I definitely learned is consistency. And yeah, like I'm gonna leave it there, but we got 100 subscribers in here, y'all. We got 100 of you guys, and I'm so thankful. The way I want to go about this is, honestly, we're gonna do a get ready with me. Nothing too crazy. We're actually staying indoors today. I already showered. I literally just got out the shower. I already did my oil and I put on some body mist. I used EOS Vanilla Cashmere today with the matching EOS body mist. I used the oil. Amazing. And they recently came out with body mists. So your girl got the body mist. But something I like to do when I do oil or lotion, I do it a lot with lotion. I mix my lotion with a little bit of baby oil so it can, last and give more. So definitely try some baby oil. Put a little bit of baby oil on any of your moisturizer, any of your skincare or like lotion. You're not gonna regret it. And yeah, so I just finished putting on my skincare, my body care, and now I am about to do a little bit of my face cream at night. I already put on my serum, which is The Ordinary. I use this religiously every day. And then for the nighttime, I use the Body Shop Oils of Life, the sleeping cream, and I'm staying home. So this is what we're using. I already put the serum, so now I'm just going to put Oils of Life. And let's just get into this conversation. When I had my first child at the age of 18, not only was I a spring chicken, but I was very much blindsided. I did not have a child in my vicinity, it wasn't even a thought process. And some people could be like, oh, but you should have known because you were doing the things that would actually create a child. But disclaimer, the reason how that happened for me was my menstrual actually switched. Okay, if you guys are confused, you know how some people, their menstruals are off, like their cycles as women are off. Well, mine was always very consistent, and for like 2-3 months leading up to me going into the military, it actually was very wonky and it completely did a 180. So on the days that I thought I was good, I actually was not. And I also was on birth control, but we all know that is not 100% effective. So hindsight, celibacy, abstinence is the way to go if you absolutely do not want to have a child, or just be 100% the best. Use the best methods of protection. That is that. Because of that, I did not have a child in my head at all. Like, I was not planning a child. I'm actually going to use a little bit of Totally Juicy lip tint from Sephora just to give myself a little color. And I did not plan a child. I was going to the military. So my brain, when I found out, and I found out when I had already left. Okay, so I was very much so in my career. I had a completely different life picked out for myself versus my last child, which was planned. At the age of 30, my husband and I, we had already had another baby. We had just had their sibling, and I was in a relationship. I was married. I was very much in love. I'm still very much in love with my partner. And like, it was a no-brainer. We wanted more children, and it happened. So that was the biggest difference. Emotionally and mentally, I was prepared to have a child. Physically, I was prepared to have a child at the age of 30 versus at the age of 18. And mentally, I wanted the child. I was ready to have that change in my life. Geographically, I was ready to have a child. I was a little bit more established, a lot more established if we're being honest. I was not living in the barracks. I was not like in the military when I had my last child. I was very much in my own space. So that is one of the biggest differences, mentally and emotionally. Mentally, I was ready. Emotionally, I was ready. When I was 18, I was not. That was not something that was even in my, again, brain. But my child came, and it was a decision that I did not take lightly. And I ended up having my child. But it came with a lot of trials and tribulations as a parent, because it's your first kid. And honestly, it sounds super, super bad. But when you have a child at a very young age, it's kind of like a guinea pig. And again, I'm not shading, I'm not being disrespectful, I'm not doing anything. I've had conversations with my oldest child, very, very honest conversations about having a child at such a young age, and they also can see the difference of the type of mother that I was with them versus how I am with their younger siblings. And they understand, but it's very much trial and error when you are a young parent and you only have one kid and you are still a child yourself. Think about it. I was 18. Technically, yes, I was an adult, but legally I wasn't even allowed to drink, which, by the way, I didn't even taste alcohol until I was like 21. So I did things by the book for the most part. So outside of how I felt, the way you behave, the way I behaved with my lived experiences with my first child, I was very much on the go. I was constantly still moving. I was constantly still feeling like I needed to, y'all, you already know. You already know. This is my brand, okay? One of my goals is to work with this brand because I love me some Neutrogena. If you see this, holla at your girl. But no, seriously, they're amazing. And when I was 18, I was very much on the go. Like I was saying, I still felt like I couldn't do everything the same when I had a kid, even though realistically you can't. You need to have a huge support system. You need to have the knowledge and the mental bandwidth to understand that now you're not just one person, you are two people. You're responsible for two people when you're 18 versus being alone at 18 with no kids and no real responsibilities other than yourself. So I didn't understand that. Now, I say all of that to say, my last child, I planned my child. I was prepared for my child. I was in a space where I was physically capable of taking care of that child a lot better than I did my first child. Now, do not misconstrue that information with me not taking care of my first child or me not being around my first child. It was just a lot more struggle with the first child because I never did it. And again, I was still very, very young. When you're older, you already have learned some tips and tricks of the trade. So you kind of understand and you've done it before. You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot easier when you're doing it a second time around, a third time around, a fourth time around versus the first time. With my first child, I wasn't as patient as I am with my last child. And that's just being completely frank. I did not have a lot of patience. I was always on the go, as any normal 18-year-old would be. I knew I had responsibilities, I newfound responsibilities with my child because I was a mom. So I was not running rampant, but at the same time, I was still mentally like the Energizer Bunny, you know? I was still all over the place. Instead of working towards a career, because the career I wanted and I had, but I had to stop, which was the military, I then turned to retail. And I was working 3 jobs at a time and still going to school. I enrolled in school in college and I started going to school while still taking care of my child. So I was doing so many things that I did not stop and really fully focus and just sit down and take a breather, which is something that I do completely different now with my last child. With my last child, I understand that money needs to be made. I understand that, I need to continue to move forward and progress for myself and for my child. But I also understand that my child's childhood is only one time. So I will take a breather. I will stop whatever I'm doing and I will sit down and watch my child spin 400 times if that's what they want. If they want me to just sit there, that's what I'm doing, because time is precious and children deserve that time. And again, for those of you just jumping in, or if you stepped away, please do not misconstrue this with me not paying attention to my child. And my oldest and I have had very honest conversations, and I've even apologized. I've owned up to not being the best parent that I could have been to that child at the time, because now I know. And it's kind of weird because you will never know unless you do it again, and then you realize, oh wait, I could have done that better. It's life, unfortunately, but it's also very important to take accountability. And I have no problem apologizing to my children and telling them sorry and saying, hey, I messed up. I did this wrong, etc., etc. My oldest child is now a teenager, and honestly, it's kind of freaky because they're almost at the age of 18 themselves very soon. So pretty soon I'm going to have an adult, and it's insane to think about. But when you are in the thick of it, you don't see it. So my first child, I was not as patient. I was not enjoying the little things. I was definitely present. I was always there. I was always doing everything that needed to be done. But the little things that a child would pay attention to, like dressing up for school, or like the 100-day celebration, or wearing a green t-shirt for St. Patty's Day, things like that, they went past me. I was there and I did the big things. My kid always had a costume for Halloween. They were always present for Valentine's Day parties and Christmas parties and all the big things. But all the little other things that mattered, that you have to really be present for as a parent and know, like, okay, you have to do these things, I was not present for my first child. And they missed out on those things. Thankfully, my child was very spoiled and very blessed, and they never actually cared for those things as a child. Like, they were very introverted, and my child was in a lot of extracurricular activities. My oldest is actually a black belt in Taekwondo. They also danced in Broadway dancing for children, and they did that for a few years. So, I was very much present with my child. They also learned how to swim. They had private swimming lessons. I also put my child in private school. So even though I was a young mom and I was doing things and they missed out on little things, they were definitely taken care of. Versus my child now, that I feel like their childhood is so much longer. And I was talking to my husband about this the other day. Like, we were discussing this. Like, we looked at each other. We were like, damn, these kids are still 6 and 5 and 9. And I'm like, right? Like, their childhood is like, days feel so long. Versus my oldest, I was so on the go, I was always moving, that days were so fast. Like, it just didn't even feel like I was present. Like, in a blink of an eye, my child went from a baby to a teenager. And I know that that's also like a trauma response. And I guess that was on me because I was living on the fast lane, even though I did the best. And honestly, I tapped myself on the back for the amount of things and the amount of accomplishments that I was able to do as a young mom for my child. But I missed it. I missed the memories. I missed seeing those things. And I know I was there, but sometimes it just doesn't click. Like, I have to look at a picture to remember those things. Versus my little children now, like 24 hours right now is like 56 hours. The days go by so slow. And I cherish every single day. And I am in it. I sit with them. I lay down with them. I am just very much in their childhood. They know mommy is an anchor, I'm there, versus my oldest. So that's the biggest difference. And that takes, honestly, this is very much a transparency video, because it takes a lot of courage and honesty to be able to hold yourself accountable as a parent and say, you could have done things better. If I could go back in time, knowing the knowledge and knowing the things I know now, I would 1,000% do differently from my child. But unfortunately, I cannot do that. I can only just be a better parent for them now. And now that I have all of this wisdom and these lived experiences and these years of being a parent under my belt, I can show up for my child now and their growing times into adulthood. So I'm very happy that I was able to mature and have a better sense of self and sense of responsibility for my child, because they're still going to need me as an adult and I'm going to be there. Another big thing that is a huge difference between back then and now is my communication. I was not that great with communication. I said a lot of things in my head, and I was always an introverted child. I didn't really speak a lot. I did, but I didn't. That's a whole nother thing. But I'm very type A. So I'm going to start there. I'm a very type A person. So in my head, everyone around me had common sense. And that is a huge mistake, because that is not true. Not everybody has common sense. Not everyone knows what you're thinking. And as an early mom, as a young mom, I sometimes assumed that my child knew things that I, in fact, was supposed to teach them. And I didn't, because I just thought that they knew that. Like, a perfect example, my child had a competition. I remember this. Sometimes I still think about it, because it really gives me like that wisdom, and I've apologized to my kid about it. My child had a tournament for Taekwondo, and it was one of the first ones that they had, and they needed to put their sparring gear. Their fingers weren't like wiggling into the glove. I was putting on their gear, but I was rushing. I had just came out of my second job. I made it on time, took my kid to the competition. We were there. They were already sweating and hustling and bustling, and everyone was there, and they were like waiting for me and my child to get there. And I'm putting on the glove situation, and my child, being that it was their first time putting it on, they didn't know that they had to wiggle their fingers in. I was so flustered, because I'm like putting it on and they're not moving their fingers. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, come on, put it on. And my kid is looking at me like, and I'm like, oh my God, like here. And I didn't shove it, but then I started moving, like I started shaking it, and their hand went in. And then when I did the second hand, I was like, look, I went like that. So I showed them with the second, attempt, that this is what they had to do. They had to wiggle their fingers. I didn't do it on the first try. And that's something that haunts me to this day, because how was my child supposed to know that if I didn't communicate that? So that's something that happens when you are a young parent. For me, at least for me, my lived experience was I did not communicate certain things that I should have communicated, because I just assumed that these things, like, you were just born, and as you grew up, you knew them. Again, not everyone was like me. I was very observant. I'm very type A. I was always looking at people. I'm a visual learner. So me growing up, I would see things and then I would just pick up and know how to do them. So that's a perfect example. Now, my last child, I don't do that. If I am introducing something new, I do it first. I bring that example. I show them how to do it. I tell them and I visually show them. And then I do it myself. And then I help them do it, so that they have different ways of getting it done. I don't leave room for misunderstanding or allowing my child to feel like they're lacking something when they're not, or they just don't know. Like, I don't allow my child to feel that way, because I can control that now. This was a very vulnerable video. Very transparent video. But I am here for all of that. I'm here for the lifestyle. I'm here for the self-care. And I'm here for the parenting and the motherhood. The tips and tricks, and, the trial and error and the life experiences. And I feel like this is a huge tip and trick that people do not realize. When you are a new parent, do not assume that you have a second chance. Everything you do is one shot. It's one time deal with that child. It takes a lot of growing pains to be able to have that discernment and understanding that you are not perfect. And I'm telling you now, you will never be perfect as a parent. If there is a perfect parent out there, please point me to them so I can get advice from them, because I still do things wrong. But being a parent is allowing yourself to be vulnerable and allowing your children to see that they have somebody that they can fall back on. They have somebody that they can ask for help when needed. This is not something that is at least for me, because honestly, there are some parents that once you hit 18, you're done. You know, you got to go out in the world. But for me, parenting is not an 18-year contract. Parenting for me is a lifelong thing. So right now I'm just putting my head wrap on, because I'm just gonna relax for the rest of the day. But yeah, give yourself some grace and check in with yourself every single day. Make sure that you feel like before you go to bed, make sure that you can think on everything that you did that day for your child, and you can really sit there and be okay with it. If it's not sitting well with you, fix it. If it's not sitting well with you, make sure that you and your child have a conversation, or that you do better the next day. Don't leave it for years later. Do not apologize years later. I mean, your child may not even remember what happened, but again, this is something like my kid, the tournament example. My kid does not remember that. But that's something that will live with me forever, where I could have done better as a parent. And I make sure that I don't do that with any of their other siblings. And I got kids. I got a lot of kids. I got 5 kids under one house. So what did I learn as a parent, as a young parent versus the parent that I am now in my 30s? I learned communication. I learned patience. I learned to be vulnerable, and I learned to apologize. If you get anything from this conversation, if you are about to be a parent, if you are a parent, if you are a child of a parent, communication, grace, patience, and understand that you can always do better the next day. And if you know better, you should do better. That is the end of this video. I hope you actually grab some nuggets of wisdom here. Thank you for being here, and I welcome the comments. If you relate, if you understand, if you have any questions, please feel free to be that community in these comments below. Again, this was a very transparent video, but it was a very necessary one, because again, I do have children that range from 5 all the way to almost 18 years old. So I know what I'm talking about, okay? And not only that, but I live in New York City, one of the biggest cities in the world. Very chaotic, very messy, very all over the place, very fast paced, but I'm a very present and active parent every single day. So I will see you next week. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video, because I know I did. And again, this is one of my lived experiences, and I live it every day. So I not only am speaking it to you, but I'm also acting and walking that walk. And I hope you do too. Do better for your children. Your children need you, and your children will be thankful for that. Bye.